G'day from Australia. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I'm broadcasting. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. My name's Ashley Davis. Welcome to my coding live stream. Today I'm doing a wrap up for my special coding live stream from last week. Last week I live streamed the development of my React Outliner project. Quite a bit has happened since then and I need to catch you up on it. I'll overview the project, show you some tips for developing a React component, and we'll see what's happened since last week. The Outliner is a React UI built, or a React UI component built in TypeScript. It's hosted on GitHub, so it's open source, and it's published on the Npm registry. In a moment, I'm going to show you how you can catch up on the previous sessions if you missed those. So if you want to watch the development of a complete React component project, as it happened in real time, you'll be able to do that on my YouTube channel. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is AshleyDavis75. This is the GitHub repository for the React Outliner. You can find it on my GitHub, Ashley Davis. The project is React Outliner. If you want to contribute, I'd love to have people contribute to this and push it forward. Please fork the project, clone it for yourself, and submit pull requests. That's going to help drive this project forward, as would any open source project. If you scroll down, you can see the README. There's a screenshot of what it looks like. There's a link to the live demo, so that's new. Since I published this, or since I finished the live streaming last week, I created a live demo, and I'll show you that in a moment. Now, there's instructions here on how you can install the React component using npm, how you get it into your React UI, and an example of the data that you can pass into it. As I said, this is published on npm, so you can find it here. We're up to version 0.0.9, so there's been a few versions published since last week. All the same README here, but this is where you can install it from if you want to install it in your own project. Where's the YouTube channel? Here's the YouTube channel. So you can find my YouTube channel. It's called the Data Wrangler. Go to playlists. I've got two playlists at the moment. There's my regular weekly live stream for the task board, the Kanban board. That is an extension to Visual Studio Code. This is the one we're looking at today, the coding live stream for the React Outliner. If you go into that, you can see over 2 days I did about 6 hours of live streaming. It was exhausting. It really was. Anyway, so the 6 parts to that. Today will be the 7th part, which is just a wrap up and an overview, and telling you about where this could go next and what I could do with it in the future. Now, I did really want to get into some automated testing for this. I'd never used Enzyme for React testing before, and I'd hit an issue. Basically, it doesn't support React 17. So there's an open issue for Enzyme on GitHub to support React 17. And so when I wrapped up this live streaming last week, I said that I'd probably wait for this support to come through. But actually, just this morning, I discovered that someone's already made an adapter that works for React 17. And you can get to it here. It's an unofficial adapter for React 17. So what I might do in the future is come back and do a bit of live stream testing for building out the automated testing for this project, and try again to use Enzyme using either this unofficial adapter, or hopefully they may have actually got the real adapter out by then and support for React 17 in it. Cool. So I'm just going to open a terminal. I'll go down into the project, React Outliner. So I'm just going to open Visual Studio Code on this directory. Let's actually just increase the font a bit so that it's easy to see. I'll just close all the files down here I had open last time. What I'm going to do just now is I'm just going to show you how you publish a component on npm. So you've got your package.json. This is a standard part of any node.js project, or even front-end projects these days, like projects that are built using React. I've got the version here set to 9. As we saw a moment ago, it was version 0.0.9 that was actually on the npm package repository. I'm going to update this to version 10. I'm just showing you the publishing process here, so I might make a small change to the README. What can I change here? That looks like an empty header there. I'll get rid of that. Oh, I'm just going to leave it at that. So I got rid of an empty header there. It's not a huge change, but I mean it's enough. It's enough to demonstrate. This is source tree. It's what I'm using to make changes to my Git repository. I can diff the changes here on the right to see what I've changed and just double check that it's okay, that I'm not going to break anything. I've got a small change here. I've removed a redundant header. I don't even know why that was there. I must have mistyped that in the first place. So I'll stage that. So I'm going to commit. I could commit from source tree. What the hell? I'll commit from the command line. I normally use source tree. I normally use the UI. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'll commit from the command line just so you can see. Those changes have already been staged. If I wanted to stage them from the command line, I would have typed git add dot to stage everything that was in the working state. Now I'll do git commit -m to choose a message. So this is just like updated README. Cool. So I've committed that. I might as well push it. So I'm pushing that up to the code repository now. So if you go back to the code repository, you will see this change up there after this is complete. Now I'm going to run npm publish to publish it on npm. So this is just publishing an updated version. It's already been published before, obviously. And I'm just doing this. I'm just doing this just to recap on what it means to publish on the npm repository and how you do that. Before you've done this, by the way, you had to have done an npm login. So that's a separate command that allows you to type in your password for npm and allows you to publish things there. At the moment, it's just going through the process of doing a tslint. It's running the TypeScript compiler there to build to JavaScript. So what I'm publishing here is not the TypeScript code. I'm publishing the compiled JavaScript. So that's all gone up now. You can see version 10's gone up. If we go back to npm, so it was version 9. If I refresh this, we should see version 10. Sometimes it takes this website a little bit of time to actually update. So I've got version 10. For some reason, my screenshot's not working. I wonder why that is. I'll check that out later anyway. Yeah, so sometimes it takes a little while to update, and that's just because NPM indexes these packages after you publish them. And I guess if you publish during a busy time, it's going to take a while to show up here. Now, I'm going to open another terminal, and I'll go into the example app. So I used to have, well, last week when I was live streaming this, I had the example application in a separate directory. Now it's actually included in this repository. It's not included in the npm, the published npm package, and that's actually let me show you how that works actually. So I've got here an npm ignore file. So anything that it's like a git ignore file, but whereas the git ignore file tells Git what to ignore and what you don't want to put in your code repository, this says what you don't want to have in npm. So what I did was I added example / here, and that excludes the entire example directory from npm. So I don't need to bloat out my package with the example application. It's just there for people to use. And if they want to look at the example, they can get this code repository. Or better still, look at the live demo, which I haven't even showed you. I've got to show you the live demo in a second. So that line there, added to npm ignore, that prevents this this example project going or being published up to the npm package repository. Okay, just before we look at the example, I will show you that live demo. So we go back to the Git repository here on GitHub. In the README here, you can see it's got a link to the live demo. So I'm just going to open that. One thing this has got that it didn't have last week is this. On the right, it's got like a JSON view of the data, so you can see what the data model looks like as you're editing this. It's just this isn't something you'd never have something like this in production. You probably wouldn't want that, but it's just really good for development to see what it is that's underlying the React component you see on the left here. So I can do things like if you watch down here, watch this grandchild note 2. I'm going to drag and drop to move that. And how embarrassing, it didn't even update. That was supposed to update. Let me try editing it. Okay, that works. So for some reason there's a bug there that drag and dropping isn't kind of causing this synchronization to happen where it kind of redisplays the JSON file here. So that's something I'll have to look into later. But you can see here that if you watch down here, you can see whatever I'm typing comes through. So that at least some part of it's working. Now there is a problem. I did hit a problem with the drag and drop in that what I'm using here is React Beautiful Drag and Drop. This is the storybook for it. So React Beautiful Drag and Drop is a great React component. There's so many amazing components for React. It's just feel like it's like one of my superpowers. One of my superpowers is NPM, that I can pull in any package into my project and use it. But the fact that I can do that for React as well is freaking amazing. But yeah, so this is the drag and drop library. And there's a whole heap of different examples here. It's really cool. Look up React Beautiful Drag and Drop if you want to use it. Unfortunately, it's really good for these kind of flat lists, but there is an issue with it relating to trees. So you see how I've got a tree of kind of like drag and droppable nodes here. If I drag this, you can see there's like a graphical glitch there. Like, so that is a problem in the drag and drop library, unfortunately. And it was actually when I introduced drag and drop into this. So originally I had it all just keyboard driven. Then I added drag and drop to it. And then that is actually at the point where it broke my enzyme tests. So it became a lot more complicated once I added drag and drop. And you should see the code. I should release a version of this code before it had drag and drop, because it was just so simple, and now it's so complicated. But anyway, so there is a problem with drag and drop and nested tree items. I don't know how that's going to get resolved yet. I mean, I thought maybe I'll try a different drag and drop library, but I couldn't find one that was as good as React Beautiful Drag and Drop. And there's no guarantees that, if I tried a new library, there's no guarantees that it wouldn't have its own problems. So now what I could do is I could log an issue on their GitHub page, and but they might be busy. They might not have time to address my issues. And in fact, I've Googled this, and a lot of people have complained about this, and it hasn't been fixed yet. So maybe they are just too busy, or they don't really care about drag and drop in trees. So that's fair enough. I might have to go in and actually fix this myself, and that could be an interesting live stream of its own later on. How I go in there, understand how their React code library works, get into it, figure out why the problem's happening, and then fix it, commit it, push it to my fork, and then submit a pull request so that hopefully they might accept my changes into their library. But anyway, that's something potentially for the future. Let's try and get back on track now. So I was looking at going to look at the example app. I'm just going to open a separate Visual Studio Code here. Now this is like a pretty standard React UI. It's generated using create React app. So that it was generated like this basically. npx create React app. And you put on the type. I think you put on the TypeScript. I didn't get this right, so there's something wrong with this. It's something like this. Anyway, you'll have to Google it to find out the exact syntax there. But that will create you like a template or empty kind of React application based on TypeScript. It's a really great way, really quick way to get started and developing with React. So that's basically how I bootstrap this. As I said, I messed it up, so this isn't actually, if we look at the source directory, this isn't actually TypeScript, there's JavaScript files here, but that's okay, it's just an example. And it's good anyway, because I wanted to show that this could work. It's a TypeScript React component, but I want to show that it can work in a regular JavaScript React application. So pretty simple use case here. You can see all this in the README of the React outliner. I'm importing the outliner, and I'm importing a helper function here as well. I'm setting up a bunch of default notes. So these are the notes that you see in the live demo. I've got my app class here, which is being rendered on screen. My default notes are being sort of plugged into the initial React state, and so I'm rendering from that. I'm passing in. I've got an outliner here in my JSX HTML, and I'm passing in the notes from state. I've also got an event. This hasn't been documented yet in the README. I'll have to make a note to do that. When the outliner is updated, it fires this event on notes updated, and we execute this anonymous function here that receives the new updated notes, and we set the notes, the state of this back to those notes. So we're tracking the state changes. Incidentally, this is how the JSON works as well. So when we're doing this set state in React, that causes the render to be executed again because we've updated the state, so we want to re-render it, which then causes the state to be stringified here to JSON. And I've just got that in some pre-formatted text on the right. So that's how we got the JSON displayed on the right of this example application. Now, let's what's next here? Okay, so if you had just imagine you had just created this example. So you'd used npx create React app. You've got like a stub empty React application. You want to install the outliner. How do you do that? You go in install, npm install save. Save isn't necessary anymore. It's just a habit of mine to keep adding that. And we say, let's install the React outliner. So this is installing the published version. This shouldn't actually make any changes anyway, because if we look in the package, obviously in the package.json file, we've already got the React outliner here installed. It got version 9 installed, so maybe we should update that to version 10, the version that I only just published. So that's installing. Come on. Cool. Yeah, so it's only still reinstalled basically version 9 to get that back. What I might do, one way to update a React or a Node.js project is to change the version here, and then once you've changed the version, do an npm install to get the latest version of that. Otherwise, it might show up in npm outdated. I don't think this works real well for pre-version 1. npm outdated will show you the outdated packages that you've got in your project, and an npm update, is it npm update? I think it's npm update to get it up to the latest version. Although I don't think this is going to work in this situation, because I don't think that actually works for pre-version 1 or something silly like that. Yeah, so I think if you've got a later version, I think that actually works. It would say, yeah, see, the wanted version would be 10, and that should be what it would update to, but it just doesn't do that in this situation. So we'll do it here. We'll change that to version 10. We'll do an npm install. That's going to get the latest version of the React outline. Now, if you were developing a component like this, and you had to publish it and change the version number and reinstall it every time, like while you're updating the code, that would be really painful. That's a really time-consuming and unproductive way to basically build a component, like an npm published component. So I'm going to show you how I do it otherwise, in a more efficient way. Let's just check. If I do npm outdated now, it's hopefully going to show me that I've got the latest version of my React outliner. So there's nothing in the list, so that's good. That means there's nothing that's outdated. Now, what I want to do here is I want to run npm link. So this is just the most amazing command that comes with npm. It automatically creates a symbolic link for you between your npm or your Node.js project here and your you run it over here basically. So you run it where you want it to be linked to. You run it with the name, so React outliner. So you can link as many components or as many kind of packages as you want through. So they're linked. The output here shows you what's linking to what. So now if I went and had a look in node modules, let's do that. React outliner. You can see here that this actually includes the source code. So if you, let's just unlink it. Is it the unlink command? Let's have a look again at that. That didn't do what I expected. Let's just try. I just want to get this back to the state it was in, basically. So let's just try installing it to break the link. So what I'm trying to do here is I just want to reset it back the way it was, so I can show you what it looked like when it's not linked, when it's installed from the package repository. Which is interesting as well, because then you'll also see how that npm ignore file works as well. So you can see here now I've just looked into this React outliner that's been installed in this example project, and it's very minimal, right? It's got a license, it's got a README file, it's got a build directory, it's got a package.json. If we have a look in the build directory, that's where you can see the compiled JavaScript file and also the exported TypeScript type definition. So that means this JavaScript file can also be used from any TypeScript application, because it's got all the static types in a separate project there. But because it's compiled out to JavaScript, you can use this component now in any JavaScript project. Well, this particular component is designed to be used in a React project. But I mean, much of what I'm saying applies to any NPM package, whether it's Node.js, React, Angular, Vue. Probably, I don't know anything about Vue actually, so don't quote me on that. But okay, let's set up the link again. So I'm gonna find that command, npm link react outliner. So again, it shows you where the link is going, and if we look at what's in that directory, type it in again. You can see there's a whole lot of crap in here now that we normally wouldn't have published. So, you know, we've got all the TypeScript code. You can see in here, there's a TSX file. That's the TypeScript code. So, you know, this includes a lot of stuff, and that everything that I included, everything that I had put in my .npm ignore file is gone. Once you publish, it's gone. But because we've just linked it back to the actual source project, you can see it all again. But the reason I'm doing all this is so that I've got like a direct line for code changes in my React outliner project. So I can make changes in this project now, and they'll feed straight through into here because of the symbolic link. I also have live reload set up for, I guess what I call live build. So I can run my build script. So that's in package.json, npm run build watch. So that's running TypeScript or the TypeScript compiler in watch mode, so I can make changes to the TypeScript code. It's automatically going to compile it out to the build directory as JavaScript code, which is automatically going to filter through here to the example application because of the link. I'll just quickly show you how this how that command I just run, how that works. So in the package.json here, that's the example. We want the React outliner. Too much. So if I just open the package.json file here, you can see there's a whole bunch of scripts here. So I can run any of these by running npm run and then the name. Now the start command is special because you don't need the run bit. You can just type npm start, and that's a great way to start any node project. It doesn't make much sense for this component really, like that thing, but and there's also test. So you can run npm test, and in this case that runs jest. For any other of these commands here, you have to run npm run. So let's see that again. So if I was just starting this, if it was a regular project, I could type npm start to run it, and that, you know, at that point you've sort of abstracted away what the main file is. So you can see here in start, I've said that the main file is index.js, but you know that doesn't that could be anything. You know, that could be main, it could be server, you know, whatever you want to name it. I mean, it's a bit of a convention that it's index.js. That's a convention for Node.js projects, and you know, any kind of web project as well. But you don't have to care about what that file is or whatever. You could add command line arguments here as well. You know, whatever command line arguments you want that you need to make it take by default, and running npm start would encapsulate that for you. So whatever Node.js project or any project where you're using npm, whatever it is, you can run npm start to start it. So that's a great tip for working with other people's projects. You just clone their project, run npm start, or of course first you have to run npm install to get the dependencies, but then you run npm start. That's a quick way to start pretty much any project. And I said there was an npm test as well. So in this case, that just translates to jest. But the main thing I'm looking at here is npm. I want to basically run a live build pipeline for this, so I can make changes, have those changes be automatically compiled. So I'm going to run npm run build watch. Now I need the run bit. Because this is not a Node.js convention. So if you're just typing, npm start or npm test, these are conventional. So you could do it like that. You could go npm run start or npm run test. But because they're conventional, npm allows you to omit the run. So, but for any other script in there, you have to use that run command there. So I'm running build.watch. Let's see what that does here. You can see what it translates to here. tsc --watch. So this is, this is pretty straightforward. I could type this. Let's copy this and let's just type it in there. So I can do that. Oh, no, I can't. In this case, I have to run npx first so that tsc is scoped to the current project. So that npx command is going to run the TypeScript compiler, the installed one that I've got in this project. That incidentally, that npx command means that you don't have to install npm modules globally anymore. So we used to have to, say if you wanted to run tsc from the command line like that, you used to have to install it with this -g option that would install it globally, which is painful when you've got different projects that might be using different versions of TypeScript. So you get into kind of a dependency hell if you do that. So fairly recently they introduced npx, which means you can run TypeScript directly from whatever version is currently installed in this project. So basically doing this npx tsc watch is the same as doing npm run build watch. Now it's actually a bit longer to type that npm run build watch, so it's not really a savings, but what it does do is it means that no matter what your project is, if you have this is my personal convention, by the way. It's nothing like an NPM or a Node.js convention or anything like that. It's my own personal convention. But it just means that whatever project I'm in, like whether it's, it could be like a back-end microservice or it could be a front-end, React application, whatever it is, I type npm run build watch and that starts it and does everything it needs to do to start this build pipeline. So it's just a convenience thing. It means that you don't have to remember like what this command actually is per project, like what command is required to do this, And it means you could be using, something like Webpack. Webpack can be used to build front ends, and I use that in some of my projects. And in that case, it would be Webpack, right? Or watch or whatever the command, whatever the option is for Webpack to do that. So it's just a I don't have to remember that. All I remember is build watch, and I have a bunch of commands. So a lot of these commands, or a lot of these scripts here, are my own convention. So we're building that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the example. This is where I'm going to run npm start. So this is where, let's just have a quick look at how that's set up. So in the package.json for the example project, you can see start here is set to React script start. So it's using the create React app scripts basically that it sort of generates into the template React application for you. It's using that to start it. Under the hood, it will probably be using Webpack, and I think what happens from memory, unless they've changed it, you can eject. You can do this eject command here, which on React scripts ejects. What that will do is basically pull out the Webpack configuration for you, so you can start to customize it. So I'm pretty sure that it's using Webpack under the hood, but it was probably a year or two ago that I kind of learned that. So my knowledge on that could well be out of date by now. So I'm running npm start here to start the example application. That is going to automatically open it in a web browser in just a moment. It takes when it first starts up, it's going to take a moment to compile the code and start up. It's any minute it's going to open a web browser. Cool. I'm just going to hit F12 to open the Chrome DevTools. DevTools are just invaluable. So if you're doing anything in the front end, you need DevTools. You need to understand the basics of using the DevTools to navigate your way around the inside of a web page. And you can do some pretty cool stuff in there as well. Here we go. Cool. So we've got the example application up and running. in the dev tools, you can look at the whole, you probably know all this already, but you can look at the whole kind of tree of elements here. You could right click, choose inspect to find the element, and you can do some pretty cool stuff here, like looking at all the kind of CSS styling on the right here for that particular element. You've got access to the console here. You've got access to the console here. So if any errors are happening or any kind of debug logging is happening, you can see it here. Let's actually do an example of that so you can see some debug logging. And I'll also use this as an example to show you how the live build process works. So I'm going to go back to the React Outliner project here. I will put this next to the command line so you can see what's happening. Let's just close off a couple of tabs here that I don't need open. What did I want to do here? So I'll go into the main component, which is index.tsx. So this is the main sort of component. There's been a bit of refactoring here. There's a couple of components here that you won't have seen before if you did watch all the previous live streams, and I'll go through those in a moment. For the moment, let's add a bit of debugging code here, and I'll do a debug print at the start of onDragEnd. So this is the function that gets invoked when dragging and dropping has finished. Console.log is like your best friend. It's just so useful. Like debugging is great, but console logging is essential. I'm just going to say, yeah, onDragEnd happened. And I'll print this thing that's coming through, this parameter, this drop result here. So it's just a good way to see what's happening in your JavaScript is you can basically print everything. Like you can console log pretty much anything. Also, there's heaps of other interesting console functions like console table. Definitely have a look at those. Have a look at what's available there on the console because okay, did you see that? I just saved that and it says file change detected. Starting incremental compilation. So that's actually compiled it. Let's cause an error just to be sure because it's saying 0 errors. It's still watching for file changes. Let's cause an error and see what happens. Just type some gibberish in, save it, and you can see that it's automatically compiled it. But in the process, it's showing me the errors as well that I've just created. I didn't really want to create an error. I just wanted to show you what would happen. So that's compiled. Now, as a part of the compilation process, it's compiled the JavaScript code into the build directory. That is symbolically linked into the example application. So if we go back to the example application, it should have reloaded. Let's check and see. Yep, so you can see that it automatically reloaded. So I've got the code that's doing this print. So I got the print onDragEnd happened, and I can browse what was passed through. I can actually, it's really cool to see like what's happened there. And you can execute code from here as well. You can type JavaScript code here and execute it against the DOM and try out stuff. And it's a great way to do prototyping when you're doing front end development. So what I might do now is show you how I created the live demo. So if you were interested in creating a live demo for your own projects, I'll just run this and see what happens. So I want to run npm run. What's the name of it? If you can't remember the name of an npm script, I've got this open in Visual Studio Code, so I could just jump back to that to check. One quick way of checking is to use the cat command. And you can basically see what scripts you've got available here to use straight from the command line. I didn't use the command line at all. Now the cat command actually is not normally available on Windows 10, I don't think. It should be there on Mac OS. It's definitely there on Linux. And if you've got Git Bash for Windows installed, you'll have all these Linuxy tools. So you'll have ls like what I've been using. So that allows you to run Linux Unix style commands on Windows 10, which is really cool. I'm just so used to using these commands under Ubuntu Linux, and I just love that I can use them under Windows as well. So what do I want to run? Build. So I want to run npm start build, and what this does, this is included. This setup is included for you when you use the Create React App tool, it allows you to build a static version of your front end. So it's compiling out at the moment. It's compiling out all the TypeScript code. There isn't any TypeScript code because this is the JavaScript front end. But if there was TypeScript, it would compile that. It bundles all your modules together. So there's a bunch of different modules included in this code. So I think it's using Webpack under the hood, but it's hard to tell from this output to be sure. What this does is it creates this build directory. Let's go into that. And this is index.html. So you can actually, from this directory, you can actually run a web server to see this. So this is a great way to test that your static website works, is to run live server. Live server is a great component that will just create like an instant HTTP server. So this is running in live server now. This isn't running any other way. But it's the same as what we saw earlier. So it's a great way to test. And it supports live reload as well. So I wouldn't be using that in this case, but if you make changes, say to your index.html or any of the code that's in here, then it's going to automatically update that web page for you. Anyway, so that's how you build a static website out of your kind of dynamic React code. Now, what you do to put that on GitHub Pages, so the example, if I can find it again. So this live example here, it's hosted on GitHub, right? Now, what you need to do is go into the settings for your repository. Scroll down to GitHub Pages. So this is GitHub Pages. Go to the documentation here to basically learn more about GitHub Pages. It's a great way for you to host a free static website on GitHub. So you can choose here. You have to like enable it here. You kind of choose where you want it to be. I'm choosing it to be. It only gives you the option of the docs subdirectory. So what this is meant to be is I think it's meant to be for you to host a static web page that is the documentation for your project on GitHub. But I'm using it as a live demo. But so I have to put it under docs to make this work. Alternately, you can host it under a separate branch, but I've just got it under the main branch here in the docs directory. So to update this, what I do, this is a bit awkward, and I could automate this, but I probably won't update this enough to worry about automating it. I will just delete the original docs directory that I've got, one directory back, so that's in the main repo, and I'll move the build directory to be the docs directory. So that now I would commit that changes. I'll look at the git status. It's probably going to show me a bunch of changes on the static website under docs, you can see. So I'm updating that. If this is not something that I want to commit, of course, so I'm going to get rid of it in a second. But what I could do now is do my git add dot to stage it, git commit -m some message to commit it, git push, and pushing it up to the GitHub repository would then update the live demo. So this is a real cool way to host a live demo, or probably as it's meant to be used to host some a static web page that has documentation for your project. So that's really cool. But I just want to make sure I don't have any changes that I want to actually keep. No, it's just the debug logging, so that's cool. What I'm going to do is a git reset hard and smash all my changes. Oh, I spelled that wrong. I don't know why I didn't get rid of those. I guess maybe because they're new files. Maybe that doesn't work. It doesn't want to get. It's very conservative. It doesn't want to get rid of new files, so I can remove them quickly in source tree. Cool. Let's have a look at a bit of an overview of how the code works. So one thing I did here was that in the middle of the React outliner, it's rendering like a tree of notes basically. So initially, if you watched the live streams last week, you'll have seen me start to go down the recursion route, so the recursive rendering of a tree. And then I fairly quickly backed out of that, thinking that it would be much quicker just to keep it as a flat list, but where each item has the indent level to manage the parent-child relationship. But when it came to doing like the nested drag and drop, that didn't work very well. So I've ended up basically, going, restructuring it, back to be using this kind of recursive thing. So I've got, in the state here, I've got like a tree. So it's now a tree of nodes. If we look at this, we can see that there is a root node. Anyway, we can get that through the get root node function. But each node, from the inode interface, it has 0 or more children. And that's how we implement the hierarchy. If you go back to the rendering, you can see here that so this is the render function for the outliner component. There's a bit of drag and drop code surrounding this, but it starts by rendering the children of the root node. So the root node is actually synthesized. It's just plugged in there because it makes the rest of the code and the algorithm, the tree traversal algorithms, easier to manage. So it's going to basically render the children of the root node, and the root node, it's not something the user can see. It's not something they can edit. It's really just there to make the code a bit easier to use. Now so the render children function, it puts a droppable. So this is part of React's beautiful drag and drop. It puts a droppable around the list of children, and that allows you to drop into the list of children for a particular node. Underneath that, now there's a whole bunch of complicated stuff here that I'm not going to explain. That's all related to the drag and drop library, which it seems overly complicated, but maybe there's not a simple way of doing that. In the middle of that, anyway, it kind of maps over the children of the parent node. So in the first instance, that would be the root node, but at each level of the tree, it will look at their children, map over them, and render a child node. And so this render node here is the main thing that renders an editable node in the outliner. It's wrapped in a draggable, so that's part of React's beautiful drag and drop. And again, there's a bunch of sort of complicated stuff here. Fair bit of complexity here, all the way down to pretty much here actually. That's sort of complicated by the addition of the drag and drop code. So that's why I said before, it might be good to actually release like a separate version of this that doesn't have the drag and drop, just so you can see how simple it really is. We're rendering an SVG bullet here. That's the little circle off to the left of the node. And this is where the node is actually rendered. So I took the step of refactoring this. After the live stream, I refactored what was a content editable div here into a note editor. This makes it easier. This is not the reason I did it, but it might make it easier in the future if you wanted to take this code and fork it and put your own kind of editor in there. You've got a simple place where you can kind of change just the way the editing of a single note works. The main reason I had to do this was to implement focus. So I had to pull this out to its own component, and we'll have a look at that in a second. So it's its own React component. I did that so that I could procedurally set the focus. And that's what this does. So it passes through a Boolean to set the focus of it. What this means is that when you add a new node, and I'll show you this in the live demo. When you add a node by hitting enter. But it focuses the next node, so you can just start typing. And so I needed to kind of factor that out to a separate component so I could implement this focusing ability. Now you'll note here I'm not using HTML inputs. I'm using content editable divs. If I was using a HTML input, it would have provided this I could have set focus on it by doing that, right? Or in this case, note.hasFocus. That's how I could have focused it if this thing was a HTML input, but it's not. I'm using a content editable div, which makes it a little bit more difficult, and I have to implement that kind of focus giving capability myself. And this component has a bunch of props that are essentially events for when things have changed. When they've hit the enter key, we create a new note. When they hit Control Delete, we delete a note. So much of this code is the same as it was in the live stream last week, or it's now refactored for this recursive tree structure. But I'm just basically, in response to these events, basically that this component is raising, I'm calling the functions that edit the tree. Or edit the notes in the tree. So here's where we're passing the text through into the note. Let's dive down into this. So I'm going to go to definition here, or we could use F12. F12 Visual Studio Code is very useful. It takes you to the definition of a class or a variable or whatever it is you hit F12 on. So this is a pretty standard, I guess, React UI component implemented in TypeScript. You'll note here that I've got, I'm using content editable. So this is, last week what I was doing, I was using a div and I was adding the content editable field to it. But there was some code I had to write in order to basically synchronize the updates of the text back into the data model for this. And it was kind of complicated, and it turns out that there was this great, I googled how to do it, and it just basically pointed me to this great NPM component, React Content Editable, which does everything I wanted and more. So I saved myself a bit of time by converting over to using this. I'll show you that in the render function in a moment. These are the props, so these are the properties of the note editor component. This is a TypeScript interface that defines the types and which properties you can pass in, like the text. Optionally, the question mark here means it's optional, but this allows you to set the focus to this particular note, or you can leave it as false or undefined if you don't want to set the focus. And then we've got all the functions here. Again, these are all optional. They're using the question mark there to denote the optionality of it. Everything else here is basically an event. So like a function that we're passing in to the note editor component in order for it to communicate, back up the component hierarchy. We've got state for the note editor. There is no state because the state basically goes into the into this content editable. So it holds the state of the text that is being edited. So we don't even have to worry about any state. So that's just an empty interface. The note editor is just a fairly regular TypeScript class. It extends the React component class, and the TypeScript's type parameters for that tell it what type the props are and what type the state is. We've got a reference here to the div element that we're using basically to kind of host the content or for a note. We'll look at that in a moment. We'll see that in context of the render. We'll come back to that. Here is where we're creating the ref. Refs are a really useful way actually to, what we're using this for is as a way to interact with the DOM. So normally when you're writing a React component, what you're doing is you're generating a virtual DOM that React is automatically going to translate for you into a real DOM. But if you need to interact with a real DOM, which is really useful if you want to kind of call functions on the actual DOM element, or if you want to interact with like a legacy component that say doesn't support React, creating a reference is a great way to do that. We've got the lifecycle functions here, the function that gets called when the React component is first mounted into the DOM. A component here that's basically, this is how the focus works, by the way. This function is called when the props are changed or when the state is changed. And what we're doing here is we're saying if the prop has the focus, we then give the focus to it. Here's that function give focus. So this is where we're using the ref. So we're using the ref to basically pull out the actual DOM element for a div that's in this component. And we're calling focus on that. Now, it wouldn't let me, this is actually a HTML div, but it wouldn't let me call focus on that directly because of TypeScript's type restrictions. I'm not really sure if there's a proper way to do this. Please, if anyone sees this and knows there is a proper way, please tell me what it is. Because I've had to basically cast it as any in order to be able to do what I want with it, to call the focus function on it. The on-key down event, I won't explain this, but this is something we looked at in the previous live streams when I created this. This is where it's handling the keys and basically raising various events. Raising various events here to basically let the next level in the UI hierarchy up know what's happening. And here's the render function. It's quite small because we're just making use of the content editable. Now it conveniently allows you to pass in the ref, so it's going to connect the ref to the actual DOM element for us. If we didn't have that, if we were just using say a content editable div, we're using, just pretend instead of that we're using like we were using last week, a content editable div. I could set up my ref like this, note ref. So that's how you would normally set up a ref, and that basically allows React to plug the real DOM element into that after the actual DOM is created. but I still need that. I still needed that ref. I mean, content editable uses that ref in various ways, and that's why it's passed in. But I still needed to have that ref myself here. I think because I think that's probably optional. I think probably you can get away with using content editable without that. But I still needed the ref anyway because I needed to be able to use it to do the set focus. And this content editable function supports the on key down event, which is great. I needed that. I plug in the text that's coming from the prop into the HTML element, and then when it changes, I get this callback, which basically gets propagated up the UI hierarchy using this on text change event that I created. I think that's about it. What else? Is there anything else I need to explain? So I've explained how this is recursive now. Oh yeah, so one thing I did, which you won't have seen last week, is I actually created this note tree. So if we can have a quick look at that. The code for managing certain aspects of the tree, like, you know, being able to find the parent of a child, or being able to find the, you know, drilling down the tree to find, you know, the farthermost leaf node, stuff like that kind of needed to be done to navigate a tree or navigate the note tree using the keyboard. That code was all becoming really complicated. And so I factored it out to a separate class here called the note tree, and there's an interface on that, but we won't worry about that. Here's the class that implements the note tree. It basically takes a root node as its only kind of entry into the tree, really. The first thing it does in the TypeScript constructor here is to create a lookup table. So there's a recursive function here that creates a lookup table that allows you to find a note by its ID. That's what this thing here is for. So this is a map. It's like a dictionary or a hash table or something like that. Indexed by string, that's the note ID, and what it gets back is a note. So that makes it quick to find a note by ID if we need to. There's a whole bunch of operations here, like, you know, getting the root note, getting a note given its ID, so that's what's using the lookup table here. Being able to add a note, so this sort of patches the note into the children of whatever the parent is, and it patches the lookup table there so that we can retrieve the new note. Being able to remove a note, so removing a note removes it from the lookup table, as well as removing it from the parent node's children. Note that we're always adding and removing a note from a parent. And at the root of the tree, if you're adding a root note or deleting a root note, that's equivalent to adding or removing the note to the root node. So the root node in the tree basically is what gets edited by these functions when you're dealing with root nodes. And this function to move, so this is what's used by the drag and drop code. It calls move note, which basically removes the note from its previous parent and adds it to a new parent. There's some code here, limited traversal code to get the next note. So it'll get the next note. If there is children, you recurse down to the children. So like this is what happens basically when you press the down key in the note editor or in the outliner. So it'll take you into the first child. That's what that does. If there are no children, it basically looks to the next sibling. So that's what's saying here, child plus one. So it's going on to the next one. If there isn't a next sibling, it's going to go up to the grandparent, and it's going to get the next sibling after the grandparent. So this way, even though it's a tree structure, you can walk backwards and forwards through it using the up and down key as if it were like a linear structure. Get previous note is similar. I won't go into that. It's like a limited traversal function again that allows you to go sort of step backwards through a tree. And that's what's used by pressing the up arrow in the outliner. So I think lastly we'll just have one final look at how this is used in the example application. So here we are in app.js. Just a reminder that the example application, I'll show you where to find it in the Git repo. Here it is. So if you are in the Git repository on Ashley Davis React Outliner, look for the example subdirectory here. You can jump down into there, and that's where the code is for this. You can see the README is just whatever was created from Create React App. I should probably update that. That's where you can find the example application. Please feel free to grab this, install dependencies, try running it for yourself. Again, we're just importing in the outliner here, and basically just using the outliner in our React JSX, basically in our HTML UI here. So we're plugging in the notes through the property, and we're handling the onNotes updated event here to set the state, to update the state of the example application as it's edited. That's about all I've got time for today. Just a reminder though, this is the Git repository. Please fork it, have a play with it, maybe contribute some changes. You can get to the if I go back to the root of this, you can get to the live demo from the README here by clicking on the link here. You can find it on NPM, of course, under React Outliner, and you can find all the previous episodes, plus this episode's going to be up there soon. You can find that on my YouTube channel, which is the Data Wrangler. And if you just look under the Coding Livestream React Outliner playlist, you can find all the episodes if you want to watch the real-time development of this component as it played out. That's about it for today. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed watching this React Outliner come together. There's still more to be done, obviously. There's more work to do on the testing. I've got a bit of work to do on the README. There's some bugs. I've got to find out how to solve this issue with React Beautiful drag and drop. So this is probably going to continue in the future. If you want to see it again, please feel free to tweet me on AshleyDavis75 and tell me that you loved it and that you want to see more of it. For the moment, though, that's it. I will be back Thursday night, 7 p.m. EST, with my regular weekly live stream, and that's developing the Kanban board extension for Visual Studio Code. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.